Welcome back to the Swinburne Professional Staff Network podcast, the podcast professionals with Kristy Ash, made by professional staff for all Swinburne staff.
Most importantly, I would like to acknowledge that we are today recording from both Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri land. Kristy is coming at you from in the Swinburne Hawthorn campus office, and I am at my home office today. So Swinburne's eastern campuses in Melbourne are on Wurundjeri land. I'm on Boonwurrung now, and we would like to pay our respects to the traditional owners and their elders, past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Ash. That was beautiful. Well, a buongiorno to everyone. It's great to be back for season 3 of the podcast professionals. And yes, folks, this is our 3rd year.
3 years.
It cracks me up. I really can't believe it. So we are back. We're in your ears, and we have got a brilliant first podcast lined up for our 3rd season 3 professionals. Check us
Season
go.
3. We have not been cancelled. We are season 3. That is not an invitation to try and cancel us. I'll be sad.
We're not. We're totally in control of this. So for our first podcast for 2023, we've got Nancy Collins, and we have a stellar lineup of mega guests to chat to throughout the year. But before we introduce anybody else into this podcasting hub, let me introduce my partner in pod, the wonderful, the kind, the caring, best boss ever, the one and only Ash Carden.
I love your introductions. I would like to say, before you were talking about the lineup that we have, I just want to make sure everyone understands that lineup is entirely the amazing work of Kay Horn. This podcast
thanks, Ash.
happens because of her energy, ingenuity, tirelessness, long list of talents that I'm not going to have on here because that means I will run us over time, which I try not to do.
No.
However, just want to make sure everyone knows the brains and heart behind this is the inimitable Kay Horn.
Righto, Ash, crapping on a bit now. Stop it. I'm blushing. Fair. But you are my partner in pod. And
you know you're good.
Going bright red. It's so good to see you, Ash. I haven't seen you for ages. And for those who might be new to Swinburne, tell us who we are. What are we doing? Why do we do this podcast, Ash?
Because it is super fun.
Super fun. Oh, doing a strip.
It is a way of sharing the conversation. That's where it started. This started between lockdowns, maybe, as part of the Professional Staff Network, which is a network about connecting the professional staff and sharing development as a professional staff cohort across Swinburne. And the podcast is a way of sharing essentially water cooler conversations that at the time was in a remote work setting and now adapting into a hybrid work setting. And when we're on campus, we try and actually record in the sound booths at the recording studio.
That's always fun because then we get to see, how cool it is up there. And Jose helps us.
Jose is amazing.
Love Jose. Always love Jose. So, but you're right. The Podcast Professionals is part of the SPSN Network. And we're just a volunteer bunch of amazing professional staff. And we all connect.
Basically
we learn from each. Yeah, pretty much. We learn from each other. We share knowledge and collaborate as much as we can. And we've always got time for a cuppa, which we had not last week, the week before. So it was really good. We had a cuppa catch up just out the front of Oodle Cafe. Nicola Howard, who many of you might already know, has been at the helm of the SPSN network for a couple of years. And we help her. We give her heaps of muscle and we help her boost the profile of the network. So if anyone wants to be a part of it, give us a shout out. Come and join us. It's just a really nice, great place to be a part of at Swinburne. So,
absolutely.
What do you reckon about that one?
Yes, please do join, see, and participate in the events. The network puts on events or activities, coffees, seminars, this podcast as to what is best for Swinburne staff. So if there's something you want to do or something you want to see, it is an open door. Come to one of those coffee catch-ups.
Absolutely. But when we when we share our podcasts, which, you know, we do a couple of times a year, you know, it might be 5, 6, 7 times a year. There is a bit of an issue at Swinburne because, you know, there's a problem with power because we tend to melt the internet. So the podcast is very popular. And we might.
Are we saying break the internet like that photo shoot that one social media entrepreneur?
Yeah, no. I'll probably have to
have a word. Podcasting?
I'll probably have to have a word to someone to say, look, crank up the backup power supply because, you know, we are releasing another pod. But Ash, what have you been up to? I haven't seen you for yonks. It's so gorgeous to see your lovely face.
I know.
How are you? Are you well?
Not bad. We've been doing some job swapping, hat swapping, just while we do some leave coverage across the team. So that's been really, really interesting and really good to also go back to my normal role.
Okay. Is that as of today? Are you back to your normal role today? Oh, yes. Fantastic. Yep. That is really, really cool. It is hard juggling when people are off on leave and stuff. So, but it's also a good opportunity to learn new stuff and then get a better appreciation of what other people's roles are as well. Yeah. So, I've had a really busy start to the year. It's just I thought it would be a nice.
I was going to say it's like before we pressed record, we were saying it's a few weeks / month. But actually, it's been this year has gone
April already,
off like a bang.
You know? Yeah.
It's nearly Easter.
Yeah, I know, which is great. I'm looking forward to a nice break. Lots of chocolate too. So caramello is my favourite, if you're wondering, and I also like white chocolate too. So FYI.
Excellent.
But my role straddles across the CSI, the Centre for Social Impact, and also the CXI research group. So we've had noise. Did you hear that noise? We had lots of events. We had a massive event last week and we had strong registration numbers. So I've been doing lots of events and working internal, external engagement. So that's part of my role. But I feel like it's just, you know, kicked off with a massive bang this year. But this week's a really good week for me, Ash. I feel like it's going to be a lot of catch up, desk admin-y type work, and I don't have to be pulled into a million places at once. But last week I had an event and I was the IT Zoom person, right?
Yeah, you were.
So, oh my God. So anyway, I had a speed crash course Zoom kind of meeting with Paul, the amazing Paul Lavey. And then the amazing IT, Phil from IT came and helped set up all the live streaming. I had 2 computers. I had my phone. I had the big presentations up on the screen. We had 4 people presenting plus a remote person. There were some problems along the way with, hello, I can't hear. Are you meant to be sharing the slides? And, you know, there were people that couldn't hear what was going on. And, you know, so there was nothing like sweating bullets right in the middle of it.
I would have needed to pee. I tell you, I would have needed to pee every 10 minutes. Sorry for the overshare, everyone, but also it's very
normal. Know what? Oh, it was totally fine. I'm going to do a bit of editing of the video and chuck it up on Swin Commons. But it was a really good event, and I felt like at the end of it, thank God that's over. But it was also like I learned something new, and it was a really good event, and that was for CSI. And that was the research for social impact. And we had some really high-profile presenters there from the Australian Commission of Non-for-Profit Commissioner. Yeah. So that was really interesting.
But it's the challenge. And people often say we like a challenge. We do. What we tend to like is if we have ultimately succeeded in that challenge and learned something. I think it's also pretty normal during the challenge. We have a lot of things clenched and it is not necessarily what we call fun in the middle of the challenge. It is what we would sometimes call terrifying or there's other things, and I've committed to having cleaner language so Kristy does not have to do half as much editing of these pods. But the satisfaction of meeting the challenge and learning something from the challenge for next time tends to be what people enjoy, not the sweaty needing to go to the toilet a lot part.
Yeah, but it's it is awesome that we can lean on other people for support, whether that's event, IT, or whatever. We've got a whole heap of range of people here that can help us out in some of these crises. Did you just open a beer?
Yes, I opened a beer during work hours. But again, for the record, everyone, I'm being very sarcastic.
Whatever.
I just have an addiction to my soda stream.
All right, well, you get some soda stream in you, Ash, because we are just about to open the door to our next special guest. So,
who I am not drinking a beer before interviewing, for the record, or any other alcoholic beverage, because that would make me too sleepy. And our guest is, as Kristy's about to announce,
Nancy Collins. Bum, bum, bum.
Swinburne's COO. So definitely we're all church mice here, because I do not want to be sleepy during this interview.
And don't be drunk. All right.
No.
Today, we have a very special guest joining us for a chat and a cuppa. We're delighted to have Nancy Collins join us. And for those who don't know, Nancy is the Chief Operating Officer at Swinburne Uni. And with an incredibly busy role, we are really happy that she can join us for a chat. So let's bring her into the pod, Ash. Hello and welcome, Nancy.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, very nice to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the chat.
Terrific. Yes. Well, it's super cool that you've made time in your schedule to chat with us, so thank you very much.
It's the extra hour from daylight savings, so everyone knows we're recording this just after the daylight savings ended.
I'm feeling just nice and rested,
And for all those who wasted it sleeping, shame on you.
Yeah, I didn't even realise until waking up in the morning and my husband said, yes, the clocks have changed. That was my first realisation of daylight savings. It's a lot more automated than it used to be.
Yeah, it is. Perhaps we can start by asking Nancy for you to describe your role at Swinburne and talk us through what that involves as a Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you. So my role at Swinburne is actually, I have a lot of breadth and depth to it. So managing the operations for the university, but with a more lens for my role. So that sort of covers everything from strategic campus asset estate planning all the way through to running the facilities in terms of security, cleaning and things like that. The biggest team actually in the operations portfolio is our information technology team. So we've taken a digital first mindset to how we've set that strategy for the university. I've also got the finance and people and culture team. So I think I describe the portfolio as really the people and the capability, the people and culture part of it, in addition to everything that's operational. But in my role specifically, more focused on those portfolio strategies for the university, very closely linked, of course, to the Horizon 2025 strategy.
That's a very important role and sounds super complicated, Nancy.
Never a dull moment keeping the tech and buildings literally functioning and standing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting role. Your day doesn't always go as planned, and you can sometimes need to delve into some detail before you come back up and see the wood for the trees, as I call it. So your day might not be quite spent as you thought you were going to spend it at times, and that's what makes the role diverse and challenging. But it's not a one-person show, so I have a very capable, high-performing leadership team, and I've always believed in hiring people who are smarter than me and very enthusiastic about what they do. So it comes together quite well as a very diverse team, and in fact, actually, there's depth throughout the teams in the frontline leadership management, and that's very important for the amount of things that need to get done on a day-to-day basis that lots of us take for granted, because I suspect from your perspective, you turn up, you plug your computer in, you've got somewhere to sit, it's lit, it's secure, and all of those forward-thinking strategies in terms of what we're going to be doing in the future have already been thought about and already invested in and already delivered. So ideally, if you don't, you take all of those things for granted, then we're doing our job really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash, do you want to ask the next question?
So we've talked a bit about the day in the life of, I'm going to improvise mildly, just what is your favourite and least favourite part of your role?
The favourite part of the role is actually more recently focusing in on the people and culture element of the role. So building sort of a little bit more depth in the people strategy, which we did last year, and then using that as a platform to drive investment in how we attract, retain and develop our people, and how we're going to build the capabilities that we need to, as an organisation, deliver Horizon 2025. And that's been a great piece of work where we've engaged really widely across the university. So more of that sort of forward-focused, big picture type stuff, and the work that we'll do this year in terms of investing in organisational development specific to some of those capabilities and in building out that talent capability framework and leadership framework. That's sort of really sort of juicy, exciting stuff that's focused on our people, which is obviously our most important asset. And the least favourite part of the job would probably be, I think when we...
It's hard. That's a hard one.
It's really hard when you're on the front line and responding to a crisis, and the executive who makes the call on when we stand up the crisis management team. And there's a really strong group of people, once again, who come together to lead those technical functions. But it is quite difficult sometimes to be on the front line and be dealing with some of those problems. And the way I described it to someone actually in the past couple of weeks is there's not a lot of emails I'm getting or necessarily a lot of conversations I have where everyone's like, all's fine and dandy. By the time it gets to me, it is because it's escalation of something quite serious, quite potentially horrible to deal with and not something you want to deal with day to day. And so then, therefore, you have to take time to stop and think about what am I grateful for and what is going well, just so that you're not focused on too many of those things that come up that perhaps need to be dealt with, whether it's a student issue or, anything that's going on in our environment or anything we need to respond to. So just making sure that I'm seeing all of those, 100% of those, and they're only sort of the 1%ers in terms of what the university is about and what it's really doing. So I think that's probably the toughest part of the job, but the way to overcome that, I guess, is to keep resilience up and keep perspective to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I suppose. Go ahead.
I suppose
we've both got so many questions.
Absolutely.
We do this all the time, Nancy. So
100%.
I was just going to say, I'm going to sneak in here. For things that keep me awake at night at work, things like organising big events and making sure we've got everything organised and, the IT is going to work, you learn new things all the time. But Nancy, what part of your role keeps you awake at night?
Probably awake in a good way, not necessarily a bad way, but really, having to think about what's the right size and shape for the university, what's the university's going to look like in the next 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, as an executive team, we're partway through delivering the Horizon 2025 strategy and we're starting to think about the next strategy. And so then therefore the reflection on, how's it all going, what's going on in our external environment. There's a lot actually that's going on in the sector at the moment from a political funding perspective. And there's sort of on a macroeconomic level, the geopolitical risk, the things going on in our external environment and the markets that we operate in and the customers who we impact. They're the sort of things at that seismic level that I'm thinking about. And because I'm so interested in that space and what we do in that space, and I feel very invested in it because I get up out of bed. I think I heard someone saying the other day, they were describing me, we were doing second-rate interviews, and I had a colleague sort of say, Nancy's really drunk the Kool-Aid on the strategy. And I thought that's actually I didn't realise I was doing that, but it's really true. I believe in the transformative power of education and what we do, and education changed my life, which is what's drawn me to the industry. And so I am thinking about all of those macroeconomic and environmental things and sort of thinking about how are we going to respond to that, what are we going to do, what do we need to do, how do we sort of do more of what we're really good at doing. And how do we, I really constantly challenge, like we always talk about global prototype of best practice, which means we need to be different. And I'm often sort of going, we're not going to be a prototype of best practice if we keep on doing the same thing. So I really want to make sure we challenge and disrupt, because it's uncomfortable to do that. And so they're the kind of things. Sometimes I'm up at night thinking, God, I hope people don't think I'm a,
say it.
not a nice
Come
person. The word for a very not nice person. And it's because it comes from a place of passion and from wanting to drive the change that's needed. And sometimes that can be quite confrontational and disruptive. But I'm not scared to be that person.
Yeah, I think that's really, as much as we, organisation, society, whatever, evolve and are evolving, and something I like about working at an educational institution is that we should also be on, and we can incorporate into our roles and our jobs, being on the forefront of genuine inclusion, of conscious and unconscious bias, and putting processes, procedures, but also energy and strategy into genuine inclusion for all people.
Yep.
And however, those difficult conversation piece, and as far as we've come, I do find sometimes that it is more likely that even if you can say the same thing, and I'm absolutely speaking about my own experience here, I could use the same words as someone else who might be a different appearance or a different gender, or even sometimes standing differently, and I might be thought of as one thing, also that word at times. And sometimes to that person and their role, maybe I am that word. Maybe I am causing disruption in someone's life, but as long as it's done with both professionalism and also having your ducks in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
that is part of it, right? And Swinburne's motto, this is going a while back, it used to be question everything. It was my favourite one. We've had a lot of good ones, but question everything was my favourite. Swinburne saying.
Yeah, look, and I think you're right in that so long as it's constructive and respectfully done, it's coming from a place of knowledge, or that desire for I call it the greater good. I think it's interesting, and we are so fortunate that we work in a place that we can take time to educate ourselves. I've learned so much. I'm the executive sponsor for LGBTQI+, and I have learned so much. I've gone to training that's available. I've talked to different people in the community. We've restood up the Ally Network. I've joined industry forums and wider private sector forums, and the amount of learning and knowledge that I have now versus 2 years ago is just extraordinary, and that's all done as part of my role. And it's, I can educate or not educate myself as little or as much as I like, but the fact is that it's there, that option, and I can activate it. And that's really another powerful thing about working at a university. There's so many things that you can connect in and you can opt into, and in fact that you should opt into.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah. Love it. I'm forever putting my hand up for stuff, and I love all those opportunities that we have, all that exposure to.
Absolutely.
Nancy,
I'd say life-changing, really.
Yeah.
If I hadn't never worked at a university, my eyes would not be, I would not have cared as much and had as many opportunities to learn why I want to keep learning.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's good, Ash. Nancy, what do you see as the biggest operational challenge facing universities in the future? Big question.
Yeah, I think
I've got two big questions. This is part one. I've got two. Ash, you can read out the next one.
I think it would have something to do with the campus experience. So from a campus estate master planning point of view, when people come to campus and what they want when they come to campus, whether they're staff, students, industry partners, community, etc. I think that's changed in a post-pandemic world. Now, obviously, all universities can't afford to just go through every square metre of gross floor area and update that and do what needs to be done. And I think actually it's a continual evolution. So what do we do in terms of, we call it making the campus stickier? What are the types of spaces that we need to create so that students are coming and it's not transactional? So we know that it's kind of like, I go to uni to go to a lecture, or I go to uni to go to a tutor or a class. And we don't want that. We want students to come because they know it's an exciting place. They know they're going to bump into people. They know that they can study. They know that things are going to happen. So they can just feel comfortable parking themselves for a day. And they're going to run into industry partners or other students. And they're there not because they have a class, but because they want us to be there. And from a staff perspective, you know, in a post-pandemic world, what sort of spaces do staff want? Why do they want to come to campus? And when they're here, what are they looking for in terms of what they need for their professional development and for them to do their role? And that's all changing. And one of the things we did last year, for example, was we activated 2 floors in GS and 2 floors in SPS buildings as we call hot desk spaces, and that's probably not the best terminology, but you know, and we're constantly reviewing how is that going, how are people using that space. And I love, without sounding creepy, walking around the university and seeing how people are interacting with the spaces that we've created. And they're on purpose. You know, there's different furniture layouts or desk layouts and different types of spaces that we can create. I had the benefit of going to the Junction last week to address the SSU Queer Collective. And I walked around all of those spaces to see how are people using them, how are students using those spaces. Is that what we thought they were going to be doing there? And just give you so much insight into the future design of spaces. Angela can tell you, you know, would we need some more spaces like this or less like this? And I think it's just really fun. This just interests me to no end.
I had a funny story last week. I'm in a GSE building at CSI, and out the front of the CSI, there's a big window and a big long couch thing where people can come and sit. And I had an event, so I had a spare table just sitting outside the doors of CSI. Anyway, I came out and I had seen a student had got the table and pulled it right up against the couch, and had set up his laptop, and he's like, and I came out and I'm like, oh, great idea. I love what you're doing here. And anyway, he's like, yeah, I've just got this webinar and this is a really nice quiet spot. Is it okay if I sit here? I'm like, yeah, of course. That was awesome. So he sat there for a while and did his webinar, and it was a really good initiative. I'm like, I really like your style, mate. So he was like,
I think that modern thinking, you know, how do we be agile and flexible enough to change to how people want to interact with the campus, and how is that done in a sustainable way, which means also too that, you know, you have to listen to there's 10% of noise where people have got unrealistic expectations, like, you know, I only want to come to campus 3 days a week, but I want my own desk, I want my own office, I want my inner floor where we didn't ever design it to have offices, which means that the air conditioning and heating and cooling is going to be suboptimal. So how do we start saying, you know, when do we say yes, when do we say no, when does it make sense? And all of those strategic space management principles are things that we're working through now in this year, and we'll need to consult widely because we have such a diverse group of people who are interacting with the campus and using the spaces. So I'm really excited to see what comes from that work, but we can't magically sit in an office and come up with all of that. We need to engage really widely and make sure we've got buy-in for it. And so long as we've listened, it doesn't mean that 100% of everybody we've listened to are going to get exactly what they want, but we do need a way to get that sort of co-creation going with the campuses, because we genuinely do want the campuses to be vibrant and sticky so that you keep coming back.
I like the saying sticky campus.
Yeah, so
I for our listeners, I made a face just then. There may have been a few conversations around the traps around needing a desk for a lower use of what we'd expect of that space, or the difficulties of carting keyboards back and forth to different locations. And I have a pretty firm view on hybrid work and what you are issued, and if you choose to work in other locations as to what you've been issued, that's an excellent choice. And it's not necessarily, I am anti buying multiple keyboards frankly. And I'm very anti, and that's why I made the face, because it comes up and it is inconvenient. And thankfully, all the listeners, I don't have to make those decisions. So,
well, I would say the other thing I haven't touched on that I'm very proud of, and I think I was here less than a year, where the University's Council committed to being net zero carbon by 2025. So my team actually stood up the net zero carbon pathway plan, and by July 2020, we had successfully switched all of our energy consumption across all campuses to wind power. So we've got wind power, which is a wind farm in Seymour, which is in regional Victoria, near where I grew up. And that was actually something similar that I had done in my previous organisation, which was a manufacturing plant that operated 24/7. So I came sort of with a bit of past knowledge on how to do it all, and that reduced our carbon by 70%. So the fact that we're wind powered. So the other thing that we need to balance up, of course, in our campus estate planning, and we're thinking about it in terms of buildings, do we have to knock down and rebuild? What about adaptive reuse? In the Campus Heart project, we're looking at the use of timber and timber structures that are sourced ethically and sustainably. Was
that the one that's between BA and AGSE?
Yes, that's right.
At a couple of 2-1 Swinburnes ago, I think.
Yes,
that was presented.
So we're going to, by the end of this year, we'll have sort of high-level design concepts for those, and we'll take the business case to council, the next iteration of the business case to council in December, and continue with that project. But just right across the way from that building, in the building that's currently known as the UN building, will be a 24/7 late lab for our students, and that will have a kitchen. Once again, all of last year was spent talking with students about the types of spaces that they wanted. We know that they want microwaves, kitchen, indoor, outdoor, cook area, place to sit and eat, places where they can study. So all of that will be taken up in that design. That will be the first building we do, because then we need to decant the existing late lab across. And then, yes, that Campus Heart, you'll come in at ground plane level, which will be great for accessibility. You'll no longer have to climb up. And that it'll be, once again, lots of consultation going on this year to imagine what does that look like. But once again, the sustainability needs to come into it. We can't heat and power buildings and desks for people who don't want to be here 5 days a week, and we respect, they're like that. We've got a framework in place. So what does that mean we can expect from space is all part of a conversation. We don't have the answers just yet, by the way. We need to talk to lots of people in lots of different areas to get all of those answers and work with them. But I would hypothesise from the outset, before having those conversations, it is not sustainable to have 100% of people having 100% of a desk 100% of the time that's heating cooled with multiple technology equipment straddling 2 different locations. It just won't work from a sustainability perspective, and it's not who we are and not the commitment that we've made.
I vote individual workstations for everyone in one big space for staff. That's my vote.
We'll make sure we come and talk to you, Ash, when we're doing that.
I'm aware of exactly how realistic that is, and how many people may or may not want to reply to that opinion. So again, listeners, I do not make any decisions in this space. Just throwing it out
all
there.
Part of a conversation, right?
We wouldn't have issues in missing our colleagues or you happen to talk to that person because you're in the same building when you're on campus. There'd be no, if we're all sharing one big happy building. Also, if that ever does happen, if I land myself in some sort of like desk assignment negotiation because I did this and said this, that is not beyond me. But again, people would not like the outcomes.
Oh, Ash, I just love you so much. Hey, Ash, can you see the question I've got here in yellow?
Yes, I can.
You can read that one next.
In your, oh, no, I can't say. Oh, yes. Best achievement.
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to, I think it's going to be the sustainability one for sure. Yep. So I think it's groundbreaking and there's a lot of people working on it. But I think the best thing about that achievement is that it's authentic and genuine. We're not just going to go buy carbon credits to offset what we do use. we are legitimately, even though we're wind powered, for example, we've still got some investment money set aside in the budget this year to actually work out how do we use less power to begin with, notwithstanding that it's sustainably sourced. So we are genuinely committed to reducing carbon footprint. I don't know whether we're good at telling people about all of the things that we're doing, so we're certainly working on making sure we communicate more of that, and we work out how can people get involved. We're kicking off a program with some of our social enterprises across the 3 campuses around keep cups and sort of programs there. So we're constantly looking to challenge the status quo in terms of, how that might work when you forget your cup and what that could look like. So reducing waste and that sustainability piece.
Bring back the Swinburne Keep Cups. There's been a few iterations of Swinburne Keep Cups. And at one point, it was the large glass Keep Cups.
Oh, yeah.
And I left mine for a day. It was in one of the buildings when we had a dishwasher and it was clean. I had put the dishwasher on that night. And by lunchtime the next day, I had lost my large Swinburne glass Keep Cup. Oh. Still devastated. However, generally, when that was around, you could always find a cup or a mug or something in the space to get a coffee, to get a drink of water. And I think people forget, in terms of sustainability, it has been hard post-COVID to come back. The other thing is we would, in buildings, bring cups and things from home as long as they are undamaged that you don't use. People would bring boxes of cups to make sure that there was always something available for people who used it. So I'll add the idea of secondhand.
Yeah, and that's the whole point about that cultural shift, right? There's nothing stopping people from going out and buying 50 cups in each area that people can use. The point is, though, to be truly sustainable, what we do want to do is encourage recycling, adaptive reuse where we can, and thinking about how we eliminate or reduce our waste, and things like recycling and using the organic bin, things like that is all part of what we've implemented, what we're trying to do to reduce the waste to landfill that exits the campuses. And our colleagues actually in the outer campuses do it quite well with some of the timbers and things that they're using and how they recycle those or recycle and sell what they're building. And, I think there's great opportunities, and it's not anything that is going to be a one-person show. It's got to be many people getting onto the sustainability bus, I guess, and driving those outcomes and creatively looking for innovative solutions where they see something and think, wow, that's wasteful, actually saying something about it or trying to do something about it. And, I'm a great one at I always send things and I'm like, please do not print this. Let's have a look at it on the screen. The amount of people who turn up to meetings with full colour prints is sort of, not necessary. And, if we can encourage ways to use devices and ways to keep it electronic, that's all a tick in terms of our sustainability objectives. So, I definitely think that sustainability has got to be the proudest achievements.
Yeah, it's an excellent topic too, because just in the last week, the Swinburne Community of Practice for the Events team had somebody from sustainability come and chat to the Events Collective and talk about different ways of making your event more sustainable. And there were some really simple things like, everyone bring your own water bottles and the closest water fountain is blah, or you picking food on the menu that's lower in carbon emissions. And it was really very, very interesting. So good on you, Nancy. It's really good. It's really good to hear your spin on that. So as we start to wrap up, we've got a couple more questions for you. But first of all, I wanted to ask, how have you liked being a part of the Swinburne Professional Staff podcast, being a VIP guest? And also, this is 2 parts, but the theme for our network this year is belonging, and we reckon it's a really good theme. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree. I'll start the second question first. And I think it's very aligned actually to some of the things I'm interested in, because if we create a sense of belonging, and there's a sense of belonging, it means we're doing a few things. Number one, we're a place where people want to be and people feel like that we are investing in them, we are developing them, and they want to turn up for us, and that's critical in terms of, we're a service organisation, and, we spend a lot of time at work, so you may as well as feel like you do belong there. And I think the second big thing that ticks off is that we are truly a place of diversity and inclusion. And that means that when you do come to work, you can be your authentic self. You don't have to think too hard about what am I going to wear, how am I going to present myself. Who am I today? You are you. You feel comfortable being you. And there's a lot to be said about being able to turn up to work and be your authentic self. That speaks volumes to who we are and what we want to be. So I think belonging is important, and I'd love to see lots of people feel like they belong, because then that means they're going to come to campus and we're going to have that vibrant campus, and it's a good experience for them and a good experience for our students. And in terms of the podcast, I've really enjoyed it. I tried not to know what the questions were coming and feel like then therefore I can authentically answer those questions and have a chat, and you've made me feel very welcome, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. We do have one final question before we wrap up, and this is an absolute ripper, Nancy. You're going to love it. So we want to know, have you booked your next holiday, and where are you heading off to as we come into an Easter break?
Okay, so I wouldn't call it a holiday, but I'm heading to Shepparton, which is where I grew up, for Easter to catch up with family. In terms of the actual big ticket holiday, the last one we went to was Fiji last year. And it was a do-nothing holiday. Now, usually my holidays are planned to the nth degree in terms of even rest time. Okay, everybody, the hotel, the family, you have between 1 and 4 to rest, and then we're going to be doing all these other things. But the holiday we had last year, which was a do-nothing holiday, has really turned everything on its heels, because the whole family's realised that we enjoy doing nothing, in fact. So we're not really sure where we're going to head later this year, but we know it's going to be somewhere warm and somewhere where we can relax. So I'm open to suggestions. I did put something up on the operations team's channel the other day saying I was open to suggestions, because I was reminding everybody about our recharge program, which is actually open in September, and we have times inside and outside the school holidays. Very, very keen to go somewhere warm, and certainly somewhere where we can relax. So open to suggestions. Do you have any at all?
Well, we're heading up. We're going to do a road trip from Broome to Perth in August. So, looking forward to spending some time in some really remote places. And
but you are not going to do nothing. That is not a do nothing holiday.
No, we're actually
Kristy
going.
I'm not sure if you know how to do nothing.
We're actually going to be swimming with the whale sharks on the Ningaloo Reef. Oh wow! And there's an amazing. There's so much history along that coast, on that western coast there. So, we will do lots of hiking. There's some amazing national parks up that way. So we'll do some hiking and some swimming, and hopefully get to swim with the whale sharks. It's that time of the year where you can go there. So stay tuned. Might be the last you ever see of me, but hey, it's been fun.
Yeah, missed the Melbourne winter, which is that's devastating to you.
Oh my God, I'm a summer girl, so I'm kind of like in a little bit of mourning that we're going back into daylight. So it'll be dark at 5 o'clock.
I do not know why I don't live in Queensland.
Same. I
do not like winter. I do not like rain. I do not like COP.
Anyway.
Mystery for the ages.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nancy. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and we sincerely appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. So.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Have a chat.
Thank you very much. It was nice chatting. Take care.
Thanks, Nancy.
Well, Ash, that just about wraps up another episode. And I have to tell you, that was a really interesting chat with Nancy. Really appreciate her taking the time to speak with us today. And if you think that was a good chat, wait till you see who we've got lined up next. We have got the amazing Professor Narelle Lemon. Yep, one of my favourite people from Swinburne. She's going to be joining us in the next couple of weeks. So what do you reckon about that one, Ash?
Very happy.
Yeah, she's a good egg.
Absolutely. In fairness, there is a heck of a lot of good eggs at Swinburne. And that's part of why we do this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
We like to share the love.
We do. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Enjoy the podcast, and cheerio from me. And what about you? You going to say goodbye?
No goodbyes, no rating. I went blank.
Okay.
That's okay. No.
See you next time.
Peace,
Bye.
love and light. Bye.